You are listening to the People-Centric podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hey, people-centric leaders. We just recently did an episode that we were really excited about. Our team was abuzz about it. Sometimes we do an episode and we keep chatting about it, and that was one of those. And it was the title of it was "What's My Motivation?" Like, why do you go to work every day? Why do you do the things that you do? And we talked about you understanding what gets you excited about yourself, what gets you excited about your strengths. And it was very much started with an identity search for yourself of who are you and what do you care about? What's your mission? Where are you going? Now we want to talk about this next phase of this. This will go really well with the last episode is what's your organization's, what's your employer's motivation? And so we're going to approach this from a couple different ways. If you own an organization, we're going to ask you, do you know what the purpose of your organization is? Why do you own it? Why do you run the company? And I hear a lot of, I heard 1,000 business owners just say in unison, to make money. We do it to make money. And we're going to challenge you on that. Like, is it really to make money? Is that your core purpose of your organization is to make money? We're not anti-making money, by the way. But is that the core purpose of your organization? And then as an employee, how much does it matter to you? What is the purpose? Why do you go to work? What's the purpose of your organization? And can you link your purpose to the purpose within the organization that you work for? And how can you do that? So we're going to try to, how do we connect the dots here? I know a big piece of all of this that we talk about in terms of being people-centric is this idea of alignment. And that's kind of the topic here today is how do we make sure that we are aligned in the jobs that we do every day and not driving to work bitter every day. If you're driving to work and you're bitter about something, and that could be you're an owner or an employee, and you're thinking, man, I can't believe I'm in this situation. I don't love what I do. I'm stuck. This could be part of the problem is maybe we're a little bit misaligned. And the solution may be to go find a different job, or it might be to get your own mind right and reset your own expectations a little bit. So I think this is going to be a fun topic. We're doing this on a snow day. I'm going to start out, we'll start introducing everybody who's here. Stephanie is on the call here with us today, on the podcast, on the show. Steffi's on the show.
I am surfing the World Wide Web. Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
We're joining us from home. You'll notice like three of us are at our homes today because it's a snow day, right? And so Stephanie, makes your purpose. What are you making right now, Stephanie, that you've shown us that we don't have access to?
I'm making bagels today at home because I just feel like on a snow day, you got to make or bake something. I really woke up needing a bagel. Unfortunately, in Springfield, Missouri, there's no good place to get a quality New York style bagel. So I am making my own.
Making your own bagel. So I know of a place to get a quality home style bagel. And unfortunately, that location is inaccessible because it's snowing like crazy and I can't come over to your house and ask for a bagel. So
I know. That's sad for you.
It's sad for me. I'm just going to miss out. But yes, and since you said that, I have been craving a bagel now. And then you introduced me to good bagels too on our trip. So Stephanie's got a bagel list. And sometimes when we run into places, we'll go visit. Our last one was in Atlanta, right? Isn't that where we did our last bagel?
Yeah. Emerald City Bagels in Atlanta. Shout out. They are not a paid sponsor, but they could be if they wanted to. It was the best bagel I ate last year. And we travel a lot and I eat a lot of bagels. And that was my best bagel of 2024.
So Emerald City, if you'd like to locks in a bagel sponsorship with us, you can. Just dropped in a bagel pun into that while we were going. Also on our episode here, I'm gonna stop saying call. I'm sorry, I've been on, we do this on Zoom, so I think call. Also with us here is Diana. Diana, on a scale from 1 to 10 or 9 to 10, how much do you love my puns?
9.
9. On a scale from 9 to 10, it's a 9.
Yeah.
It's kind of the low end of the scale that I gave you.
Oh, sorry. You gave me a wonky scale. You can't get a 10 out of 10.
You can actually. There were two choices. You chose one of them. You have to live with your choices, right?
They're pretty good. They're pretty good. Some of them are really good.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. We also have Philip Herzog on our episode here today. Philip, you're the only one that's in the office. Why are you in the office on a snow day?
I live very close and I have two one-way streets to get here. So I love a good adventure. It's the Colorado native in me. When it snows, you don't stay home, you go do stuff. And so I also was just really curious for your question of Diana. I was going to say, Diana, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much did you love Don's 9 to 10 scale?
One. A
Uh,
one, Philip.
Dang it. Oh, man. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, I love the snow. I'm at a 10 on the snow. So that's why I'm in the office today.
That's awesome. We appreciate it. And you're rocking the turtleneck today. So you look like you're ready. You're ready to do stuff. That's what people from Colorado do. They're like, we're not going to shut down our world for an entire winter. We're going to keep doing things because winter is beautiful. So awesome. Well, let's jump into this topic. So why is the why important for organizations? Let's start from the organizational perspective, from the owner manager perspective. Why is it important to know why your organization exists?
Oh man, why is it important for the owners or why is it important in general?
I'll go wherever you want to go with that, Diana.
Okay. I do think, and this is coming from me who's very cynical about this stuff, I do think that most humans want to know that they're part of something bigger and they want to feel included in that thing. And so if I told everyone the mission of People Centric is to make money, I think everyone would not love that mission, right? And we probably not doing the best job at it. We could make more, right? So I know, we're a little company. We're not making billions. We're not there yet. But I think if I said very outright, like, hey, our only goal is to make money here, I think a lot of people would be like, oh, well, I don't necessarily want to work there because I'm getting paid. And if I'm an expense, I don't know. I don't think that that's aligns with your mission. So I do think that most people want to feel like they're part of something bigger and want to connect with what they're doing. So I think as owners, you need to think about why you're doing what you're doing and help your people connect to that.
Yeah, so that leads to I hear some people who are looking at that a little bit black and white probably right now and saying, well, does that mean that it's not important to people centric to make money? And just want to pause for a second and just say, like, as our organization, we definitely have a mission that's not money related. But I'm going to ask our team, like, how often do we talk about money?
Every week at least.
Yeah.
At least. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it a lot. But I mean, it's kind of, I think the adage of like, mo money, mo mission, like that's our attitude of it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, or like, I don't know, I used to work in nonprofit for a long time. So it was like, when they would try to convince us all to go out and raise more money, they'd tell us no money, no mission. So I put a positive spin to that mo money, mo mission. But yeah, I agree with Diana. Like, I think people like to feel like they're a part of something. And, it doesn't even have to be this amazing altruistic thing. It's just like they like feeling like they're a part of a community and that we're achieving goals together. We get to do something and see cool results and feel like our lives are moving forward and there's progress in some respect.
Yeah, and to your point a little bit, Stephanie, like I think us at People Centric, we also know that if we're not paying you guys enough to like live and thrive, you're not going to care about the mission. It goes away really quickly when you're like, I'm hungry. And if I was like, well, sorry, our main goal is to make money and we're just going to pay you in fish sticks, you know, no one's going to want that.
Yeah,
You
for the
really-
record, I would accept 0 fish sticks as payment. That is horrific to think about.
I'll accept a couple. I will have high standards on these fish sticks, but if you want to start sending a few my way, I wouldn't say no to that. Costco
Ew,
has a nice
Philip.
group
Ew.
pack. Yeah, did I out myself? So sorry. One of my favorite movies, you didn't ask, but it relates to this. And there's a long story, but I'll make it short. The Emperor's New Groove, there's this scene, if you've not seen The Emperor's New Groove, when they first introduce Yzma, who I think is like the best villain ever created. And Yzma could represent an organization or a person who's pure motives are about an ecosystem where it's like more profit for me, just more everything for me. And she's sitting on this throne that doesn't belong to her, and there's a peasant there, and she's basically trying to help with these people. And she was like, "It's no problem on my behalf, that you don't have. What was it you said you needed again?" And the peasant goes, food? And she says, you should have thought about that before you became peasants. And the scene kind of goes on. And I think there's something Yzma does. She's not very good at engaging people. She doesn't build alignment. She has these secret schemes she never pulls people in on. And to Diana's point, people-centric goal, profit is certainly a part of our goal. I love that profit's a part of our goal, and we talk about it a lot. But for a lot of teams that we even help instigate great game of business or more financial clarity on, I think the ones that focus on profit understand that getting more eyes on that helps you make more in the long run. But what's really interesting too, I think there's cultures where if they are the least comfortable talking about profit with their team, they're probably the ones that are also the most focused on gaining profit, but they don't like to share that information because there's something weird that happens when people know how much money is coming in and going out. And so kind of a part of all this, I think the more really simple, healthy check is to say, how well does our team or our organization talk about profit? What does that look like? And I think that really helps shape your why, or at least know how well you're doing on that why, because it's an important piece of it, but it's not the only piece.
Yeah. We wanted to say it's an and thing, right? It's not what Diana said of saying, or it is what Diana said in terms of saying it's not that money is not the primary driver for most people in terms of business. It's not a very effective driver for people. And we do know that, like there's research that does support that, but we're not saying that money is not important as a business. So like if you own a business and you're thinking like my goal is to make money, and to make more money, we could say a goal is to do that. But what if you did make a lot more money? We have some organizations that we work with that are making lots of money. They're doing really, really well. And some of those organizations, which is one of the things that really kind of launched this episode for discussion, is it's actually kind of an interesting problem to have is we're making so much money. What do we do with that? Do we continue to feed it into the company? Do we just distribute it to us? And then when you're in that mode of I'm making so much money on it, then you tend to think that, okay, I got to keep paying, the owners are paying ourselves so much money for that. Then you start to become less likely to invest back into the company, to do innovation, things like that. So we want to say like, it's not, I like what Stephanie said, it is more money, more mission. Like what is that mission? So what are some examples of better missions than money, in addition to money, that organizations might have? What are some good examples that we've seen out there?
Well, as I was baking my bagels this morning, I was using King Arthur flour. And if you've ever looked at a bag of King Arthur flour, they have their like vision and mission on the bag because they are a B Corp. Which if you look that up, these are just companies who've essentially taken pledges to be really equitable and sustainable in how they do business, to put their companies first. King Arthur's also an ESOP, so an employee owned company. And so it was cool. Like their vision statement is to inspire and share the joy of baking, bringing people together and building stronger communities. And so it's cool. Like you think, if I work for a company that literally mills and sells flour, like, why would I do this as a job? Why would I work for this company? And I love that they've connected it to like community of like this idea of literally breaking bread with others. And when we make things and you bake bagels and bread and pies and you share them with love and the people around you, and then they have, their values and beliefs are about like quality, community, employee ownership, passion, and stewardship of the stuff that we have. And so I like how they've done that. I think if you look at King Arthur, I think they do really want to make money. Like they are in pretty much every grocery store in America. You can buy it anywhere. You don't do that without having a revenue goal tied to it. But I think the why behind that is really powerful. So that one was top of mind for me today of just, having that flour bag. And as I'm kneading bagel dough, reading the back of the bag.
I think that's a really good example because and what's neat is you also as a customer connected with that mission. So it shows you a very people-centric response to that, right?
Yeah, it makes me want to buy more of their flour because I'm like, well, this is cool. And it makes me feel like I'm a part of of that and of living out their values. Like, wow, like when I buy this, like they care about their employees and this money's being reinvested back in communities and employees. And I mean, I know for a fact King Arthur does a really cool community program where they like teach kids in elementary schools to bake bread. Cause one of my friends is a teacher and they've been a recipient of one of those grants before. And literally the kids have to like make a baked good and then give it to someone else. And so, yeah, it's really cool. It makes you want to buy that versus like whatever, other store brand of flour that's just trying to sell you on maybe quality. Like it does connect you a little bit deeper into like why you would work there or why I would buy this product over another.
Yeah. So if you own a business, how can you discover your mission?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I mean, I think if you're small and you own a business and it's just you as an owner, you could go and be like, oh, I'm going to write down my mission. But it might be better if you ask the people that are already working for you, like, what do you think our mission is? And include them in on that. If you're just starting or something like that, you might want to come up with a mission beforehand and have something really, really lined out there. But I don't know. You guys lead strategic planning all the time where you talk about mission, vision, and values. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of like going to the people who already work for you and asking their why. I think that's super powerful. Or like, what are we really good at as a company? Like, why do our customers choose us? Can be a really powerful question to uncover what your mission is, whether you never had one really, or you're looking at the mission and you're like, well, I don't really connect to this sentence at all, or if you're starting out. Yeah, like Diana said, if it's a really small company, it's easy to kind of look at it as yourself as the owner. My husband and I own a small business and it's like, it's us. So we can just look at each other and be like, why are we doing this? Oh yeah, like flexibility, and we want people to love their homes and do all this. But yeah, I think when we work with organizations that have larger teams, we'll often like survey everyone in the company beforehand and ask some of those core questions like, why do you work here? What do you value about this place? Why do you think people choose us? What's maybe some of our like core distinctive things that we do as a company that are unique, and kind of help uncover that. And I think the more you can bring people into that process, the stronger that those mission statements will be. Because I think we also will see disconnect sometimes of when maybe the owners or shareholders get together and sit down, they might come up with a mission that's really powerful to them, but might not connect with some of their frontline employees. So I think it's important to get a lot of perspective on that as you're writing it.
Yeah.
I like that we talked to, last week about individual motivation. And I think starting off today, even too, talking about an organization's motivation, I think knowing both of those, it's like your longitude and your latitude in a way, like two different points to measure and say like, okay, where are we at? And where are we going? Because a person's individual why on a whole team, you might have some similarities, but a lot of deviation. And so defining that org why is really important. And I think some of the ways to do it is to step back and say, like, what are we unique about? What is our origin story or our legacy story, right? Like, how did this thing start? If you're new enough to your example, Stephanie, you and Andy have a great business and you've created it, you founded it. If you're a part of an organization where it's not new and it's not small, I think it's sometimes looking back to those roots and then looking forward to say, like, how in the market, how for our clients, for our product, are we unique in moving forward? And King Arthur is a great example of, it's great branding and this great story, and they have clear purpose. And so when we're in a room of people, kind of whether it's front end all the way up to the top leadership, I always just like to ask, what's your origin story? If I can pronounce the word, what's your origin story? Like, what brought you here? What keeps you here? Especially if someone's been somewhere over 5 years, I just point blank will say, why are you still here? Whether we've just had a good conversation or a hard one. And their answer that comes after that is almost always then like the definition of mission. Things are hard, things are challenging, problems happen all the time. We're short staffed, we want more resources, we don't know what's going to happen with AI, but I stay because XYZ. And you're like, boom, that's your mission. And then how do you extrapolate that and unify around that to get your longitude and latitude as a team moving forward?
I love that. Okay, so I used to work for a company that I don't to this day, I'm not 100% sure had a mission or a vision, right? If they did, they never communicated that, right? I didn't hear that. That wasn't part of the messaging. So, what do you do if you're in an organization and you're just now thinking about it and you're like, I don't really know if there's a mission here? I get a paycheck. I like my work. I do good things. I have good coworkers, but I don't know if there's a mission. What do you do then?
I mean, I think that's a pretty common moment. And we've all each probably had it in different ways where you're like, yeah, I took this job because I'm maybe like interested in this thing, or I think I might be good at this. And they were willing to pay me what I wanted and had good benefits and perks. But then, yeah, as you start working there longer and you kind of get past that initial, like, I'm learning new stuff and that's fun phase, you start questioning it. And so I think it's important to figure that out. I mean, a good place just to start to see if something exists is you probably received some type of employee handbook or manual when you started. And usually that's where those live. But I think if that's not easy to find, or you really don't know, just start having conversations like with your leaders and managers. And I think you can make it a really positive question versus like, why are we all here? And what are you doing? And like, I think you can really say like, hey, I want to dig in here. Like, I want to lean into this. I want us to be excellent at what we do. I want to grow. So I was curious, like, what do you see as the mission of our company? What do you see as the vision? Do we have values that we abide by? Because I really want to like lean into this and understand it better. So what are those things? What feels important to you all as leaders of this company?
I feel like sometimes a good company is like art. I don't know. This is quoting the Supreme Court. Like, I don't always know it, but I know it when I see it sometimes. Maybe this is not the best reference, but I think sometimes if you're a part of a team and you don't have that great, you don't know, there's not this like written document, or maybe there is, and you're like, yeah, okay, those are cool words. Those are such inspiring words, but I don't see it anywhere lived out. Um, it's kind of that human thing where like I think we can recognize good teams or a sense of mission even if it's not spoken out. And so one way to always start is to kind of create your own. I think that does help. Like if I don't know where to go, think of yourself and the team that's around you. What are your values? How do you operate? Like what are your unspoken rules that make a good, like defining the good thing around you? When our team succeeds, what does that look like? When our team serves our client, what does that look like? And to your point, Diana, if you're a part of an organization where you're like, wow, I know for me that I want this certain treatment or level of care for a team. Our team has a great moniker which goes team, client, community. And I think that shapes pretty much everything we do. I love that it's simple. I love that it could apply to anyone. And that's something I think we share with any team, any industry, and they latch onto that. Some places maybe don't have that. It's company slash profit slash whatever it is, right? Unclearly labeled, and then maybe the rest of you. And if you feel like that's the case where you're at, like dig in deeper to your leader and ask if that's the case, right? You can kind of do some exploration. And if you feel like there's a very clear wall here of like, no, you are an expense to your point earlier. You're more like an expense to us. You're not an asset. Then that gives you information to go find places where you're not just an expense, but you are also an asset. And maybe that's just me preaching to the choir. I could talk about this for a long time. Stephanie, yeah.
I think you're pointing at something really interesting here, Philip, of like, what if I discover my company's mission and I don't love it? Or to your point, yeah, what if it doesn't exist? I kind of make my own for my part of the organization and team, and then find out that's not really the mission or the goal, and I think even as our team was talking about this episode and preparing for it, we all had like stories of friends or ourselves where like they kind of had this experience of like, yeah, I took this job because I was interested. I had the right skills they were looking for. I felt like I could make a difference. And then at the end of the day, it kind of felt like, they had these nice words on a page, but really the goal was money. Like, what do I do? And I think that's an interesting conversation to have with this.
It's such a good conversation. So I worked at an organization that I told you guys, I feel like it didn't have a mission or vision or values. And it was just sort of like doing the same things over and over. And I started to push back on that. And I was like, let's change this. And they were like, no, 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 we've done it this way for years. We're not changing it. And I was like, but if you do these things, we could expand this thing. And they were like, nope, know your role. We're not doing that. We don't want to do that. And so for me, I started realizing that I was very misaligned with the organization itself. I didn't love the quote unquote mission that was existing there, whether it was stated or not, it existed. And I didn't love that. And so I ended up leaving that organization. I will say, however, looking back, I think I could have made some, I don't know, mini missions for myself or come up with like what it actually meant to do this work internally for me. And looking back, I made some of my best friends there. I forged friendships that will last forever. I learned a whole lot about just operations and somewhat to do, somewhat not to do, right? I learned a lot about leadership and management and the way that I didn't want to treat people. So like I learned a lot from this company and I could have made it work. I could have said, here's my internal mission. Here's the corner I'm nudging out for myself. And I could have made it work that way. I chose a different path and I did choose to leave. But I think you can choose your own internal adventure, your own internal intrinsic motivation if you work at a place that has less of a missiony mission and more of a profity mission, you know?
Yeah, I will say I've also had that personal experience of like, yeah, I don't know that I really like align with like the big umbrella, like vision and mission of this company, but like the work that I get to do is impactful, and if you listened to the episode that Don referenced earlier that we recorded about like what's your personal motivation, like I am a very mission driven person of like I want to feel like I'm helping people when I do things. I want to feel like I'm growing and being challenged by stuff. And it just was like I kind of was just like a very small piece of a very, very big pie at this company. And again, not to say like that anyone treated me poorly or any of that. I just realized like, I actually don't think I completely align with this, but I can find some day to day like purpose and mission in what I'm doing. And I know there's some people who are able to do that and kind of reconcile and work at those places for a really, really long time. For me, it had a shorter shelf life because I think because my personal motivation did at some point start feeling in conflict with that. So I just felt a lot of like tension all the time between what I was doing. It did impact my motivation to do my work at a certain point, and I stepped away, right? Because I recognized that. But I know a lot of people who will work places and they're like, yeah, like, you know, especially if you work at like a corporation. And I think that's a distinction to make here between like a business and a corporation. I know a lot of friends who work at like large multinational corporations who they're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the goal is to just make a ton of money for the shareholders. And we're not pointing a finger at that and saying, ew, that's bad. It is what it is for them. And so they are having to find like mission in their own teams and in their own day-to-day work to say, this is why I do this and why it matters to me. And I know for one of my friends in particular who works at a company that's that kind of that size and more money focused, like they actually just really love their work. Like it's very mentally enriching for them, the stuff that they get to do, and they love the people that they get to work with. They make a salary that allows them and their family to just have a lot of freedom and flexibility. So I think you can sometimes find that, but it's also knowing yourself well enough to know like, are you comfortable with that type of reconciliation of like, I might not align with the bigger picture, but I can find my own piece?
I love that you mentioned this because it sparked a question in me. We both talked about how we either found our own niche or we decided to leave. What are the things that led up to us even feeling like we needed that? And why was there a moment? Where did that decision come from? And how would you know that like you actually need that to keep going?
Ooh, that's a really good question. For me, I think there was a small part of it, like going into it, that I knew like this probably isn't like my dream job. You know what I mean? Of like, I think I knew going into it a little bit that like, yeah, like I could grow to love this, but right now it does meet what I need out of a job. Like I'm going to be able to do some of the things that I'm passionate about. So I think there was always like a little whisper in the back of my brain to a certain extent. But then I think for me, it was like really once it stopped challenging me. So then my personal why couldn't be tapped. It was like, I've kind of figured out how to do this. And I've gone to you and said, like, I want more, I need more challenge. And the things they were putting in front of me that would be additional challenge at the company were things that were more tied to the corporate mission that I didn't really feel aligned with. I was like, wow, like I'm seeing that there's an opportunity. I could grow and I could get promoted and I could get this job, but I actually like I don't want that because that takes me closer to maybe that bigger mission why that I don't feel super aligned with. And so I think that was like the real moment for me where I was like, okay, I think it's time to go because now I'm not able to like check off that personal motivation anymore because I'm staying in a job where I no longer feel challenged because I don't want to move to a job that I would feel more misaligned with like that, like the other jobs that were there were really more like these are those big corporate jobs where you're going to toe the company line a little bit more. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. No judgment for anyone here who does, but like, that's not what I feel passionate about.
It's funny. In college, there was a small group in one of the classes I took. We did a research paper. It actually was pretty good. Not gonna lie, on Hertzberg's two-factor theory of motivation. And basically, we just interviewed folks that were either attorneys or doctors or kind of, high-level skilled folks that worked for large institutions like the federal government or hospital systems or something. And then others that were business owners, so varying kinds. And we interviewed in total like 25. And what was very interesting, it was as if there's some science behind all of this. And all these business owners would talk about how they made less money, they stressed way more than they ever thought they would. They had no idea their own origin story, but I would say they had similar moments where they realized, whoa, I'm a part of this thing, or I have this great idea, and it's going nowhere here. If the people who around here who say no can do their job, I think I can go make something and say yes, and then make jobs. And what's really, I think, kind of interesting about that, I'm thinking of just the business owners or the leaders that we talk to as well. I think we see a lot of them that can sometimes lose focus as well. I think Don made the comment, you can run a business, but oftentimes a business runs you. And I think people get in this story where they're like, man, it is what it is. I just have to do what I have to do. So whether you're an owner or an employee somewhere, I think the reality is true in both of those cases where no, the truth is you don't have to accept that. You can make changes, or your story is amazing, Diana, because you kind of started knocking around, like seeking the change. And I love that your story, you show there's still these relationships and experience that came from it. It's not like it's all for naught, but realizing, as Stephanie and I all have on our own stories too, there's something else that we're looking for. There's something that we need. And so whether you're an owner and have that level of influence, or you're a part of a team, the beautiful thing, we're in this moment when we talk about the perfect storm. I think there's ample opportunity around the world, especially in the US, where you can actually make that change if you want to. Yesterday, I was speaking with a client of ours, someone who was 45, who started going back to school to then get her master's now and is in a leadership position doing something totally different than she thought she would do. This morning at a breakfast, I was going from one thing to another, ran into an old friend who, after like 20 years at the same firm, just went out on the line and essentially started his own business doing a new thing at 54, which terrifies him. And I love those stories because I think at any stage and age, like you can always sit back and there's probably more choices and options than you thought there were. What about you, Diana? Because you've not answered to that yet.
I haven't answered. I don't know. I was thinking about it while you guys were talking, and I don't know if there was a moment. I think it was a series of moments, right? It was the body of evidence, not just the evidence itself, right? It was like There's not one thing, it's 20 things. And I think for me, I didn't necessarily set out to be a change maker or to be a I definitely did not think I would be a co-founder of a business, guys. Never in my life. So I don't think I ever set out to do that. I think when I was at this organization that I felt undervalued and I felt misaligned, and I wasn't even completely passionate about the work that the organization did as a whole. I was I was I was an office manager, so I loved the work I was doing. I was writing procedures and making sure that things flowed really smoothly and taking care of my team, and I loved that part of it. But I think for me, I looked around one day and I was like, man, I am putting in a lot of work and not feeling great about it. And that was the day that I was like, oh, I wonder if I could put in this much work and feel great about it, right? I wonder if I can continue to do something really important to me and then also feel good about the work that I was doing as a whole. And so that's when I decided to just start exploring, right? I didn't quit my job that day. I'm way too risk averse for that at all in any way. I stayed the course. I did really good work while I was working there. I continued to do good work while I was working there, and also reached out and was like, what else could there be? And then when I did choose a new company, I chose one that I was like, okay, I do like the mission and I like the overall work. Even if I'm not going to be working on the overall work and I'm just going to be the office manager writing these procedures or doing whatever, I still felt like I could do that and enjoy the overall work and feel a little more valued while I did it. And honestly, leaving that job changed my life. And now I'm here at People Centric and co-founded a company, and all of this craziness. Wild ride. So yeah, I think to your point, Philip, it's never too late. And to Stephanie's point, like, you can be part of something bigger, even if you're still a small part of it.
Yeah, I loved what you said, Diana, and I think it touches so much on, yeah, like individual experience as an employee, but also as like a business owner. Like if you're looking around and you're like, I am so tired working and I'm not getting the fulfillment or joy out of this anymore. Or maybe you're feeling it, but you look out at your team and you're like, everyone is exhausted and maybe not getting fulfillment out of this anymore. It's never too late to change and to reinvigorate that. Like, I think that's why we do mission, vision, values. And I know, we're consultants and we talk about this a lot. And even when we go into our clients, I sometimes have to be like, I know, I'm going to talk about the mission, vision, values again. But it is such a unifying motivator at the company. And so, yeah, I'd say if you're an owner listening to this and you're feeling kind of a little bit of the burnout or fatigue of doing this, or you're questioning, why am I doing this anymore? Or you're observing your team being fatigued and really asking these questions, like, why am I working so hard to be here? Or pressing on that why a lot. Like, I think our challenge is like, sit down and look at that and change it. And a lot of times, I think what I've seen at companies, it's that the mission is just outdated. It's not that it's totally bad or wrong, but your company has changed since it was started, or oftentimes, again, when we're talking about businesses and not these major corporations, like maybe somebody bought the business or it changed generational hands, or now you've got new leadership in place, or you've got maybe a new generation coming up that's really hungry for challenge. And so again, it's not to probably look at it and say, oh, I hate that now and that doesn't match us at all. But could we update it and make sure that this is where we all want to go going forward, and we give everybody on our team something to attach to that's just not just salary and benefits? Because I think that's also what we're seeing in the workforce right now. If you're only competing on salary and benefits, you're probably going to lose unless you really can just offer people the world and let them write their own checks carte blanche for whatever you're going to pay them. But I would say 99% of companies in America are not in that position. And so you need to create a why.
Yeah. And that's such a good point of like companies evolve and people evolve. It's okay for the mission to evolve. It's okay for that to change. I think People Centric's mission has changed. I think my personal mission has changed over the years. While I've been at People Centric, I think that it's important to just review it and look at it and say, do I still connect with this? Is this still who I want to be? Is this still who I am? Is this still who I want my company to be? And it's okay if you're like, it's not quite right anymore. Let's adapt. Let's evolve. Let's change it. I love that point. Is there anything else that we would say about company mission? Any tidbits, tips, practical advice? I feel like it's all big.
All big. I think we started talking a little bit about profit at the start of this, and whether we always say, whether you're a nonprofit, for profit, whatever, you have an organization that exists, you're a household, you need some form of profit, right? That's the kind of a needed, of course, essential. But I think that it becomes sticky and scary because we see so many bad examples of how profit is talked about or profit is kept secret and not talked about at all. And so I think I love all the stories we share because, just the framework of no money, no mission, like that's a scary outlook. More money, more mission, that's the same. It's just the other side of the coin. Wherever you're at, the encouragement I would share is maybe if you're especially in a leadership position or you're an aspiring leader and you have questions about what that could look like, I think a way to maybe test the waters with mission or vision, whether they're stated or not, is just that again to say like, what do we do with profit around here? Or when you're looking, what do you do with the profit around here? It's not just what am I getting paid and what do I do for you and what is the purpose of this company? I think if organizations can be transparent enough to say, this is what we like to do with profit, right? It kind of answers, why are we growing? Growth is a great thing if you know why and where you're growing. Growth can be damaging if you grow for no real clear reason. And I think we've had at least 5 clients the last few weeks who've told us last year was actually wildly successful. And now what? And that's a really good question to ask because what do you do with that? And every team member who helps make profit happen, which is every team member, I think this is our philosophy at least, can ask the question. It doesn't mean you're going to get the answer to the 9th degree, but if you're seeking answers to this, whether it's where you are or where you want to go, ask your organization, what do we do with profit around here? And I think that'll tell you a lot. And the truth is, some of them might say, we actually don't know. We're trying to figure that out. What do you think, right? If you have a great idea of what to do with that. But I think a keyword innovation we hear all the time, and I think it's a white picket fence word people use because it sounds great and trendy, but it's just like, we don't know what that means. Like, we just want to innovate. You're like, what does that mean? I don't know. We should do something with the profit. So that would be my challenge and encouragement, maybe, if you're a leader or not. Think of like, what is the profit story and what does that mean for your team? Where are you going with it? Because it does matter. But more important than profit is the why and the where after you get the profit.
Yes, I love reframing this conversation to like, what do we do with our success? I think that's such a great question. Like, if we are successful, what are we doing with that? I love that. Well, I think we have covered this topic. I think each of us could talk about this for days, weeks, months, I don't know, a long time.
Years, eons, forever.
Long time, and have varying topics that split off of this. So we could keep going, but we won't. We'll leave you with this. If you guys want to write to us, have topics for us, want to say hi, have questions you want to talk about with us, we answer emails. We're very good at that. Please let us know, and you can hear how to get a hold of us in the outro. Otherwise, we will talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to the People Centric podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead